I'm your host, David Mendonca, and today we have a very special guest. But before we delve into our conversation, I want to express gratitude to our sponsors for their support. This episode of the Show Up Dad is sponsored by Tall Man Equipment. They are a trusted provider of high-quality tools and equipment for the power line industry. Visit tallmanequipment.com to explore their wide range of products and how they can assist you. I also want to give a special shout out to the Show Up Dad Foundation. It's an organization dedicated to supporting fathers on their journey to show up for their families. Through workshops, resources, and a supportive community, the Show Up Dad Foundation empowers dads to be present and make a positive impact in their children's lives. To learn more about their mission and how you can get involved, go to theshowupdadfoundation.org. Well, guys, without further ado, we got an exciting guest. Like I said before, Tony Sabio. He's got this diverse record of service, which includes time in the U.S. Navy, Secret Service, CIA, and now he is a security professional in the private sector. Sabio writes commentaries for law enforcement today as well. Now, Tony had made a guest appearance in our show in 2 different episodes, if you guys haven't checked them out. One was American Dad, where he talks about his sacrifice and all the things he did to make America safe, even to the detriment of his children at certain times, right, being away from them. And then he also had another episode where he came back and it was called the Selfless Service episode. And it was the American Hero, where he rescued a 15-year-old national stranded in the country of war-torn Ukraine. Now, this story was featured in People magazine. So Tony is a man of many expertise in security matters, right? He is determined to improve the level of safety in our county schools, as well as mental health resources available to students. In addition, Sabio extends to restore parental rights and high academic standards. Welcome to our show, brother.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. It's been a while, man. Like 2 years, I believe, right?
It definitely has. Yeah, I think the last time we talked was after the Ukraine operation. A lot of things happened since then.
I bet, man. Well, let's get into it, man. Dude, big controversies coming up surrounding this election. 2024 is a big year. It's a big year for industries. Big year for companies, big year for our country. The state of the nation lies, I believe, in this whole election that's coming up, man. What do you think?
No, it is a big year. You know, we're at a turning point within our country. In talking with you in the past about family values, our society, talking about what's happening in our schools, everything's coming to a head right now. You know, we see a society that want to go more to the elite. And we start looking at these parties that definitely did a shift, where before it was the Conservative Party, Republican Party, which was considered a party of big government. And now you have a shift with the Democrats, still holding on to the old adage that they're for the small people, but in reality, they're infiltrated by the elites. They're infiltrated by the big business, big companies that control the money for them. They have a huge political machine, huge political dollars coming in, and a lot of lobbyists. And so when you have that much dollars coming in, you have other people pulling strings. And what's happening here now is Donald Trump, who was a Democrat, and we can't forget that, he was a Democrat in the past, in the 80s, when I was growing up, in the 90s, he was a Democrat that decided that the Democratic Party has left him and moved over to more of a conservative platform, which is exactly where we all sit. And now he's the most vilified person that you've ever seen, all the way through and through, which results in what's happening here. Taking down of a man, taking down of a person that represents our American values. I mean, it's an assault on our country.
It is. It's crazy. And like you said, there's an agenda going on, right? We talked about it in our ministry, in our podcast. We talk about how the assault on the family is underway. Well, the big agenda behind all of that is getting the people so confused about it's like a head fake, right? Yeah. Let's do this action over here so everybody can focus on that. And the meanwhile, we're eroding the American family over here, right? We're doing all these different things, these little fires that are popping up all over, and it's just a head fake, and it's crazy.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Now, Tony, I had some questions that came in, and one of the questions that was asked to me was, how in the world, when this whole incident with Donald Trump, how in the world did the local police drop the ball so badly with that whole scenario of them attempted assassination on him?
Well, let's look at it in a whole. Okay.
Okay.
One, Donald Trump isn't liked by the Democratic Party. And I'm not saying that the Democratic Party or President Biden has purposely orchestrated anything. But looking at this, the President of the United States is authorized. It's his duty to look at scenarios and then provide extra service, Secret Service agents, resources towards that person. So you have a former candidate, former president, and a current candidate. Okay, so you have somebody that's at the highest threat level of the United States of America, any president or former president. And so it's upon President Biden to go to the Secret Service and say, you will provide extra services for former President Donald Trump. Now, I'm not saying that he purposely didn't do it, but also on the same token, they could really care less what happens. So it's kind of like turning a blind eye. It's not saying that you're going to go ahead and purposely downgrade any security, but you know what? If a request comes through and Secret Service asking more resources and that gets pushed up the chain towards the administration, they're probably going to turn a blind eye to it. We see it in the government all the time. It just doesn't fit their personal agenda. Now, we have a huge deep state. I truly believe in that. A deep state that inserted their politics into these positions. Now, myself coming from the Secret Service and the CIA, I saw that deep state.
Yeah.
These are high-level people above 15, okay, that are working. There's the lifelong people that are working. To get them fired is almost an act of God. Mm-hmm. But they get this power, so much power, they start influencing. They start utilizing their own personal agenda. So it gets away from what the men and women are doing on the ground, which is protecting our nation. And now they're going off their own agenda, what they feel is best for the nation, versus what the job of what they're supposed to do is follow the orders from the President of the United States, from Congress, and under the oath, also under the Constitution, protect this nation. So they extended that stuff. And we're seeing that. It's a series of people just not caring about the President of the United States or former President of the United States. And the breakdown goes into the resources. You have so many people that is needed for a protective operation. Now take a protective operation where you're running a rally where tens of thousands of people are going to attend. Open air, where you should be covering this space going out to miles, as far as you can see. That's how far you need to have visual on far end buildings. You know, you talk about the 1,000-meter shot. They should have everything broken down into that. Now, what they did was, because they don't have enough resources, the inner circle is taken care of by the Secret Service. The outer perimeters are now augmented out to other federal agencies or military, or in some capacity military, or most of the time local law enforcement. Now, it's not saying anything bad about those men and women in blue, about the other agencies such as Homeland Security or even DS or anything like that. But this is not their mission. You know, when I went through the Secret Service, I went through weeks upon weeks upon weeks of training, specifically for this mission and nothing else. Now, I did go to FLETC and I did go through mixed police basic course over there. So I understand what they get taught. Law enforcement get taught. Nowhere in law enforcement do they get taught to do security type of analysis. Law enforcement is designed to react. If you have a complaint or you say, hey, this person has a gun over here, they're going to react to it. They're not made to create a perimeter. They're not made to anticipate threats that are coming in. They're there to respond to threats. So it's having a person that is capable of doing a job, but doesn't have the training. And it's absurd to say to these people, you could do this without any guidance, training, or anything. Now, could you do it? Could you accomplish this mission? I've done it many times in the private sector, working with other law enforcement agencies, other security entities. And what you do is you provide oversight. So if I was going to augment those positions out, I would have one Secret Service person assigned to that specific location or that area, overseeing them, making sure as a check and balance, it's quality assurance.
Yeah.
And they just simply didn't do that.
Wow, man. So there's a lot of moving parts. It definitely seems like there is just communication breakdowns, all kinds of stuff. I heard on a podcast, right, where Jesse Waters clip, where Senator Josh Hawley, he was talking about how some of the agents in that scenario, Homeland Security agents, had taken his Zoom class online. You know what I mean? And it's crazy. It blows my mind that here you got the 45th president of the United States, and his life is dependent upon these people that are taking Zoom.
That is crazy. I heard the same thing. I think there's some whistleblowers coming out that's saying that even these Zoom classes, the hour-long class, didn't even work.
Yeah.
But this is historically happening within the Secret Service. I'm happy that they're actually giving a Zoom class, because in past, I've seen times where they just put people out there and gave them some small brief, and then they were pushed down in certain positions. Now, the Secret Service has a real crisis in it. And the crisis is manpower. And it's been like that for a long time. And there's no way to defend the Secret Service right now. It's a series of mistakes and mishaps that are coming from the higher ups. And I talked to a lot of former Secret Service. Some of them are doing podcasts trying to defend. And I talked to them one-on-one and said, no, there's nothing to defend. Your sole mission is protect your protectee, whether it's President of the United States, former President of the United States, or anyone you're charged with. And to simply fail on that aspect, it's a complete failure. Now, they have a crisis. Here's the crisis you have. It's a manpower issue. And why? It's because the Secret Service is stretched too thin. This month, you're going to have a UNG going on right now. I think they are requesting about 600 Secret Service personnel to assist with that. They don't have the personnel. You have the UNG going on, right? You have President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, former President Trump, and Vice President candidate JD Vance. You got 6 protectees, okay? And on top of that, you're requesting the UNG in October, one of the biggest events. It's going to happen for days. It's going to tie up resources. The mission of the Secret Service is one thing only, and that is protecting the president, the executive branch of the United States. That's it. When you start augmenting other duties, such as covering the Prime Minister of Kenya. Now, I don't want anything to happen to the Prime Minister of Kenya, but guess what? For the American people, the Prime Minister of Kenya is on a low end of the totem pole compared to our executive branch. And if you don't feel that way, if you're American, you don't feel that way, you need to reevaluate what it is to be an American. We care about ourselves first, and that's it, first and foremost. Second to that, there's other entities that could cover those positions. Okay, I don't think that the threat level, especially in a very hot contested election like this year, is the same for any of those dignitaries coming in as these 6 people. Okay, you can have local law enforcement cover those things. Bring them in from all over the nation. You could have foreign law enforcement come in. You could have Canadian law enforcement come in and be deputized for a period of time. You could do various things to be able to accomplish that mission. That mission is actually, in my personal view, it's a State Department mission. Anyone's coming in, it's a State Department mission and not a Secret Service mission. They need to, get rid of all these extra dignitary missions that they have. Okay, there's a whole section within the Secret Service in DC called Foreign Mission Branch. What they do is they protect all the foreign embassies around. That takes manpower. Yeah. That needs to end. It needs to go to Department of State, and Department of State needs to work with NPD for that. Second to that, Secret Service has been doing this thing called criminal investigation of currencies. Now, they do a lot in the cyber, in crypto right now. They need to end that. That is not a priority. That priority mission could go to the FBI in conjunction with Homeland Security. They can work together on that. Secret Service needs to concentrate on protective operations and protective intelligence. So now all these threats against President Trump, against Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm sure there's some out there not at the same level as, former President Trump, Biden, JD Vance. They could concentrate on just that and protect the executive branch. Now, a lot of Secret Service and higher management don't want to get rid of those jobs. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because when they retire, they set themselves up with big firms like Microsoft, Google, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, running their vice president of security operations. And so it becomes at a certain level more of, I want to fatten out my resume. So when I leave, I have a cush job at the end. And I've seen it because I work in this field. And I'm probably going to get a lot of people upset at me, a lot of peers, because I'm voicing these things out that they're doing it for their own personal gain. But you know what? Same thing I did with Ukraine operation. A company said that they'll pull a kid out for $250,000. I did for 10,000.
Wow.
So what are you doing things for? Your own personal gain. You're truly doing it for mission. If these higher ups, right? We're talking about 15s and so on. We're really caring about the mission of Secret Service. They'll reevaluate what we're doing. They'll get rid of that mission, and they'll go ahead and concentrate solely on protection. And that's it.
So, Tony, for those of our listeners who don't know what 15 is, can you clarify that for them?
So GS-15 is the highest GS scale before you go to SES. And SES is more of it'll be similar to a high C-level positions once you get in that, like board member. So the GS-15s are actually running sections.
Wow. Thank you for that clarification, brother. Man, it just seems like it's just a lot of corruption, right? Mm-hmm. And also it seems like a lot of greed. I mean, let me see how I can fatten up my resume so I can have a cush job so I could continue to make more money. And it's not just in our government, it's everywhere. It's in corporations, it's everything. One of the things I really, really wanted to harp on that you said is being spread too thin. So many people right now are being spread too thin. They're taking up tasks that they should have never taken up, right? That they're never meant to carry. We see that even with single moms, and they're getting burned out, right? We see that on these fathers who think they could take on a second job or take more overtime. And then they're so worn thin because they're tired of working all these hours, right? Now their kids, their families are getting seconds. We see that even in our industry in the line trade, where we don't even know what to do with all the apprentices. There's so much work that they say that's going to be coming down the pipeline. We cannot produce enough apprentices. And that's not here. That's everywhere in the United States. They're an EMF attack, everything on our grid systems, everything like that. That's the big talk right now. That's the buzz around the power lines right now is what I'm hearing. So being spread thin, man, and just having focus.
It's definitely an issue. I mean, when you start looking at issues, and you have to look at the mission. You got to go to the core of the mission. And, the core of the mission of the Secret Service, yes, they started from the Department of Treasury. They're broken off. So they still carry the counterfeit currency mission. That's historic. But time has changed. When Secret Service first formed, it wasn't as robust as it is now. Yeah. Now, this is a robust machine. Secret Service needs to constantly redirect those dollars into R&D, research and development. The Secret Service is using outdated equipment. Things that come in are already been used, been in the market for a long time. They need to develop that precise R&D. They need to have, they do a phenomenal thing with training. When I was in, what I am hearing now is DEI has infiltrated the Secret Service. I think the last director before she stepped down wanted 30% females within the Secret Service. Now, this is not a mission that's dependent upon male or females, dependent upon ability to do the job. And that's it. So let me give you one of the training scenarios that you're supposed to do, which is be able to move a 200-pound dummy from one vehicle to the other by yourself. That is mimicking your protectee being down and you're having to pull that person out of a certain area and put them into another vehicle. by yourself. Okay. You have a certain amount of time to be able to do this. Okay. And we're talking seconds, Don't know. I can't remember exactly. I remember some of the scenarios I went through because it's done various times. It's common knowledge for this type of training, this type of evaluation to be done. You use about 90 seconds to be able to do that. It's a minute and a half to move it from one vehicle to the other, and the vehicles are average space in between, like one car length in between each other, right?
Yeah.
Which is the average length you're going to have out anywhere, right? So it's not absurdly far. It's far enough that you have to move. And 90 seconds is a long time. They started getting rid of those things, those standards. And that starts creeping over, like, hey, let's just get this person passed. Let's just, as long as they do it, as long as they complete it. Well, if the standard is as long as it's completed, then you're missing one aspect of this, that you're actually on an X and people are shooting at you. That is why you're moving this person. The worst case scenario, why am I taking a person that is unable to walk themselves? It's probably because they've been shot. And I have to move this person from point A to point B. It's like myself being a corpsman. We were taught, the fireman carry, where we had to come down, pick them up and carry them over our shoulders and move with them. We had to do that in field medical school with the Marines because the worst case scenario is I'm going to have to be in a situation where I'm by myself or the other Marines are covering for me, and I have to pick this Marine up and we got to move out of the area. If I physically can't do that, then what good am I out there? And we're moving to situations where we see this exactly happening. We see the females that were covering former President Trump about 5'4", and he's 6'2", 6'3". Physically impossible to cover him, because one of the jobs of the inner protective layer is to shield the president with their body. So physically you can't do that. Second to that, if President Trump was incapacitated, that person would not physically be able to move him. And that's a detriment to the mission. The key thing in protective operations is get off the X as fast as possible. And if you can't do that, sorry, you don't belong doing that mission. There's other things you could do within the Secret Service, but being within the inner circle is not what you could do physically.
And it seems like everywhere standards are getting watered down.
Yes, of course.
It's crazy. And it's like, okay, well, we got to meet this agenda because we need certain amount of genders. We need certain amount of this or that, right? And then they start watering down these standards. And what happens when you water down standards, you start getting a lower level of what's the word I'm looking for? I had a brain fart. Lower level of professionalism, right? And it's not even professionalism. You're just not able to do the job. You know what I mean?
It's a lower level of abilities.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Because it's a physical ability for you to do something. And a physical ability, if you outline what the physical ability you need to possess to do this, if you can't meet that standard, you cannot water it down. 90 seconds to me is a long time. That's a long time, especially if you're on X. And, I've been in many battle situations in Afghanistan, Iraq, and different areas during my career. 90 seconds is an eternity. It's like hours, especially when you get shot at and everyone's shooting at you and they're coming. You need to get off of there. And if you can't do it, if you're creeping at just to say, well, we need to pass because we need a certain amount of females to pass, that is a serious problem. And the Secret Service, under the last director, she made it known that that's what she wanted. Second to that, she was also, her former posting with the Secret Service, I think it was one of her last postings, was running a training center. And so she was changing things to adapt the culture to allow more females in certain positions, and that's at a detriment because you're not looking at mission first. I look at mission first, regardless of male, female. It's the mission, what the mission entails. If I protect you at 6'4", then, it's going to be hard to find anyone 6'4", but you know what? They're going to be at least 6 foot. I find a lot of 6 foot people, 6 foot and above. There's going to be a minimum standard right there. If the protectee weighs about 250 pounds, men and women are going to be carrying 250 pounds because
Yeah.
I'm going to put you into the worst case scenario. And that is the reason of training, to put you in the worst case scenario that you're ever going to run into. Not the easiest situation, because you're never going to rise to the occasion. You're going to fall to the level of training that you have. And what we
Absolutely.
saw in DEI is you train people and hope that they rise to the occasion. And just simply not. They're not accustomed to it. They're not going to do it. That's why people in football work under grueling situations, the heat, different things. They put them in different scenarios where they're getting gassed, constantly, and still have to run a fourth quarter play. They're,
Yeah.
in the military, especially, with the Marines, it's to put you in the hardest situation. That's why our special operations is one of the best special operations, because we put people in the worst case scenarios so they can accomplish these things. So when they get to that situation out in the field, we know that we put them and tested them in the worst of the worst. So they'll be able to handle nearly everything that's going to be thrown at them.
No, definitely. And it builds confidence too. If you go
Mm-hmm.
through hell, you definitely know that there ain't nothing. I know when I was in Buds and I went through Hell Week, it it changed me as far
Mm-hmm.
as knowing what I can do, especially even for like stuff that's physical now. I already know exactly how far I can push. My body might not be able to keep up with me, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But mentally, I know exactly how far I'm willing to go, you know what I mean? And
Well,
that's what those scenarios produce.
Well, imagine everything that you do in your career right now. Imagine you training everyone just at 10 feet above ground, putting up lines, but never at one point get them up hundreds of feet up topside. And then with the expectation, well, you've been doing it. Okay, now you add in that. Okay, now you put them on the first day of work, and you hope they rise to the occasion because it's hundreds of feet up now that they'll be able to do it. But you never tested them. You never acclimatized them to that scenario.
Yeah.
So you're creating an operation now based off of two things, what we called when I was a GRS, hope and luck. You hope everything goes well, and you're lucky if it does. And that is exactly what the Secret Service has been operating off. Two things, hope and luck. And luck ran down Butler.
Wow. Wow. No, definitely, man. That's crazy to put it in that perspective. I mean, you got a man's life on the line right there, and you're basing everything off of just hope and luck. I
Yep, we're
mean,
hoping nothing will happen, and we're lucky if it doesn't. And
my gosh,
that's what
dude.
it is.
Dude, that's a big, big gamble I would not want to have on my shoulders at all. I mean,
Yeah. And that's why the Secret Service needs to do a complete overhaul. Right now, the acting director is the person that was running protective operations. He was director of
mhm.
protective operations within the Secret Service. He was responsible for all the operations going out for the president, the former president, everyone. So you pretty much took the person that was responsible, fired the director, and then promoted him temporarily to acting director to clean up his own mess.
Wow.
So you have somebody that was part of this mess clean up this mess. But you know what? That's not surprising. Look what we have going on right now. We have a mess with Biden, and now they're pushing Kamala Harris, who's part of the problem, to clean up the problem with their new
Yes.
slogans moving forward. Why haven't you moved forward? These are your policies. So we have this systemic thing going on in the United States to where you promote the same people that are doing the same thing. It's when you go back to it, it's that old saying, what is, insanity? It's doing the
Doing the
same thing
same thing.
over and over and over again, expecting different results. So why would anybody with common sense expect a different result from the Secret Service when you have the same people in place? And I'll tell you the reason why. So JD Vance had um, a little rally going on, and it required about 40 agents, Secret Service personnel, between officers and agents, to be there from Secret Service. They only had about 4. They augmented the rest again. Homeland Security, local PD augmented these things. Right back out. You're doing exactly the same thing you did before. What do you expect is going to happen? Like I said, these law enforcement officers are not trained to the same level. Homeland Security agents are not trained to the same level. You give them an hour class, it doesn't mean anything. It's funny because I see a lot of protective operations classes and training schools.
Yeah.
And I'm very keen on this. I'll go in and I'll look exactly who's running this training school. And it'll always be, a commander from some, PD,
Yeah.
whether it's Baltimore or something like this. And in there, you read their bios. It says trained by the Secret Service. And I can tell you this, nobody gets trained by the Secret Service in the Secret Service Academy, which is JJRTC, James J. Raleigh Training Center in Beltsville, Maryland. Nobody does unless you're Secret Service. The reason why they put that trained by the Secret Service is because they get an hour class on how to do a certain portion. And now they go out and promote themselves. I was trained by the Secret Service. So now we have technically billions or hundreds of people out there trained by the Secret Service. But in reality, they're not trained by, and this shows right here. Butler show exactly. So and I told a lot of people when I look at resumes, I'm very keen on what I read. And when I see that kind of stuff, I call it out. I said, that's wrong. You need to take that off. We were not trained by the Secret Service. Unless you're actually credentialed by the Secret Service, you're never trained. And I myself had my credentials, I have my certificate still and everything, but it's the same thing. Your Homeland Security officer, it takes an hour Zoom class. Are you trained by the Secret Service? No, you're not. And so, but we're actually taking these people and saying, okay, no, now we're going to put you in these protective operations. 99% of the details can be covered by you guys that have very little training at all.
Man, we see that like crazy too, where we say, I'm certified, but I'm not qualified. Just because you have that piece of paper that says you're certified does not mean you're qualified to operate a 30-ton crane or whatever. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's like crazy.
Imagine you just do a YouTube on how to do your job and put, high electrical grids way up there. And then expand, I saw, I stayed at a Holiday Inn. I'm good. I saw our YouTube on this. I could do it. It's not, you may look cool. You may have the tools, right? Listen, I can go and see a YouTube video for an hour worth of what you do. I can go buy those tools from your sponsor. I could look the part. I could probably stand there and everyone like, oh, he knows what he's doing. The minute you put me up on there, you're going to see exactly what I could do, what I can do. I could probably climb up. After that, I'm just trying to, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. I'll probably kill myself, or destroy something. And that's the thing, just because you look like you're able to do it doesn't mean you can do it.
No, I agree with you 100%. One of the things that you're talking about, tools, right? Tools. Dude, you need to utilize the right tool for the right job. That's what we always stress. I mean, as a child, my dad taught me that. In this industry, I was taught that. And even now, if people were to look at it in that perspective, as simple as it is, choosing the right tool, meaning Secret Service, real Secret Service for the right job, then stuff would go a lot smoother, man.
It's weird because, tools are tools, having the gear, having tools, put an HSI guy, agent out there with the right tools is phenomenal. But can you actually use those tools in a protective operation if you've never done one? And that's the problem right there. That comes with training. Just like vice versa. You take a Secret Service agent or officer and put them in a role of, Homeland Security and whatever, the roles that they're doing. I'm not going to be able to accomplish that because I've never done it. I'm going to need training. And that is what we're lacking in the military. We're not going to put Marines and soldiers in a certain situation they've never been trained for. That's why you train up for 6 months before going on deployment. There's certain things that you do, and training is one of the most important things. Now, you have, like I said, in the Secret Service, you have a major issue sitting there with retention. Now, you can solve these retention issues very easy. And I can tell you a lot of ways you can resolve it. Now, a lot of agents get what's called, I believe it's called LEAD, which is 25% added to their pay. right? That covers unscheduled overtime. Scheduled overtime is good, but unscheduled overtime. Well, there's a whole lot of unscheduled overtime. What you got to do is re-incentivize everyone. You got to increase pay across the board for all Secret Service. You got to refocus their mission strictly on that. You got to incentivize them to stay. Myself, I was with the Secret Service on Special Operations Division. I got recruited into the CI, into global response staff, going after high value targets in counterterrorism. They sold me on my mission. And see, the Secret Service and protection is a very boring and lonely job. You train hard for the moment in time when someone's going to attack. And when no one attacks, that means you did either, well, you have the hope and luck thing. But in reality, you pray that nothing happened because of all the training you've done and all the backstops you put into place to deter people. Basically, in protection, if I'm doing a protective operation, I'm putting everything in place to detect a problem before it becomes a problem. Before I have to utilize the tools of like a gun or any type of weapon, I want to deter. I want them to look at this as a hard target and go somewhere else. I want to find these threats and neutralize these threats, i.e., get law enforcement in front of them prior to this event even happening. So it does for a lot of people in Special Operations Division. You're talking CAT, emergency response team, counter snipers. It does become a very boring job. So they do get that, those areas do get ransacked by other government agencies that have a mission that is more in line with these folks that are in special operations. That's what happened with me. Now, how do you incentivize? Well, there's different ways you can do it. One, you can actually start increasing the focus on protective operations and investigations. And now, when you do have somebody that you know that's a threat and you need to go get, then you utilize your special operations businesses to assist with these things, to go after these people that you're trying to find. There's different ways you could do this. You just got to refocus everything. And I truly believe the retention can be solved with a newfound mission statement, really focusing on protecting and understanding the importance of this, but also making sure the cost of living in DC. I've been living in the DC area. I've been living in DC area since 2002. The cost of living is crazy. It's similar to California, except we don't have the beaches or anything like that. So the cost of living is extremely high, and people are having to commute hour and a half away just to get to DC. You got to re-incentivize people. You got to increase pay. The Secret Service gets billions of dollars, and it doesn't go in the right areas. But how you show up that money? Get rid of the protective operations with foreign dignitaries. These embassies don't cover those anymore. Push that back out to State Department. Reestablish that, reallocate those dollars, and look and focus in onto the personnel, incentivize them, and really hone in on protective operations and research and development. And you're going to get a better, more focused work class coming through that's going to want to stay within this mission.
So it's a total restructure of the whole infrastructure. I mean,
yes,
money allocations, everything. How impossible is that, do you think?
It's not impossible. You just got to do it. Here it is. Listen, like I said, it's broken already from the inside out.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to fix something, right, you need to tear it down. You got a broken house, bad foundation. You got mites and everything eating away at the wood. You got to tear it down. You got to break it all down. You got to straighten the certain areas up, rebuild a foundation, and restart over. I'm not saying, you need to scrap it all the way through, like dissolve it, rebuild it, but you need to take a hard look and refocus everything. You need to scrap away the things that are pulling resources away, time and energy. You need to push it. You need to prioritize certain other areas. And you need to refocus. You need to have some of these higher ups, some of them that are held responsible for this, and they have their hands in this. As far as the neglect, the not caring portion, you need to force retirement. You need to go. You don't need to be there. Right now, you have a lot of people in the Secret Service there that are disgruntled They're disgusted. I was always prideful, coming from the military with my time with the Marines, the Secret Service and CIA. I was like, okay, listen, well, at least none of my agencies and military was doing doing what the FBI is doing, or the Marine Corps is not doing what other agencies or other military branches are doing with, having, and I'm sorry if people like to wear dresses and are men, I don't think it belongs in military uniform. That is separate, things like that. I was kind of prideful, and one place is because even the CIA, everyone thinks the CIA has hands in everything from JFK all the way through. And, the CIA, I love my time at the CIA. I know we have bureaucracy, we have that deep state also, but the men and women fighting that I worked with overseas and the missions we were doing, it was honorable missions. But CIA always has a stigma of, oh, you got to watch those guys over there.
Yeah.
But the one thing always was my time with the Secret Service. It was that little shiny beacon out there of what good is. Because when I was in the Secret Service, we were taught no matter who sits in that chair, Democrat, Republican, Independent, it doesn't matter. You're protecting an institution, and the institution of the United States of America. That person represents the United States of America. It represents all people. And so that was always something I was very prideful about. And a lot of other people from the Secret Service that left or still in the Secret Service are very prideful for that. And now this one thing has taken that away. It's the most embarrassing thing. And so for me, you need to, just for your sheer reputation, you need to clear house, you need to restructure, and you need to go right back at it. And it's going to take a while, but you need to start that.
Man, you had a lot of interesting points there, Tony. Yes, tear it down, I wonder how hard that would be to do that with our government, because our government is the same thing. It's rotten from within.
It is.
And there's dignitaries, there's people that are in charge that they should have term limits, that they have no reason being there at all. Time has come. They need to be out the door. Oust them, So, yeah, I mean, man, just thinking about that, it's like, if that's the solution to tear it down, which I agree with you, start all over, start fresh, get a good solid foundation. Man, in order for America as a whole to turn around like that, we're going to have to start doing that.
We got to do a lot of internal looks. And I'll tell you something, and I plead to a lot of your listeners, probably all your listeners. I have a list of presidents of the United States that I love and respect. And, it was always, that Abraham Lincoln was number one, that Ronald Reagan was number two, and George Washington was kind of up there, but wasn't as high until I read his farewell address. And when you read this farewell address, I'll just break it down to what it really comes down to. He predicted what we're seeing today. He had Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton within his administration. Okay. One was Democrat and one was a Federalist Republican, or Democrat Republican, and then one was a Federalist. They were already feuding internally. They created these two different party, factions.
Yeah.
And he writes in there saying that the death of America is not going to come from others coming over. This is just not going to happen. Death of America is going to come from when people put party ahead of country.
Wow.
And I tell all you listeners, go read it. It's long, but you can break it down. It says it right there. The death of America will be, and I'm paraphrasing, death of America will be when allegiance goes to party over the country. And we're seeing it now. We're seeing party over country. And, I push a lot of things. I create a foundation, which our motto is country before politics. Mm-hmm. Now, I am a registered Republican, part of the Republican Party in Virginia, a card-carrying member. I'm a conservative. But even then, I hold my party accountable. I hold my party accountable to the American people. I hold every other politician that I run into accountable to, that are part of the GOP, accountable to the American people. first and foremost. And if you lose sight of that mission, you lose sight of that job, that is when you need to go. You don't belong here anymore. When you put party in front of people, in front of this country, it needs to end. And you go in the biblical sense, let's try the biblical sense of that. God always says, it says it's the people, it's communion, it's coming together. When he say in the Bible, his disciples asked him, Jesus, what are two out of all the commandments? What are the most commandments? Like, what do we need to follow? He said, love thy neighbor with all your heart, or love thy neighbor and love your God with all your heart. Two things. We need to love our country, and we need to love our neighbors, people. They take in the same sense. Love your country. And what we're seeing is a breakdown of that. And I could go on and on and on and talk about where I see a lot of these parallels are happening.
Yeah.
Because I talk to a lot of people on, wake up on this stuff. We tore down the Soviet Union in the 80s without firing one bullet. And we did it by infiltrating the people and let the people change the government. If we don't think that the Chinese and the Russians, led by the, Russians and starting this, and Chinese are involved in more economics than anything political.
Yeah.
The Russians hold grudges. They don't forget.
Yeah.
Putin wants to reestablish the old Soviet Union. He already said it. He's an old KGB guy.
Yeah.
They don't forget. And they've been orchestrating this to do exactly what we did to them, to do it to us now. And you're seeing it. Hate of our country. Love of other, love of other things outside, our country,
Yeah.
other institutions, the rising over here at Union Station, they rose the Palestinian flag.
What?
They took down the flag of Union Station. Union Station is the iconic station where presidents back in the day used to take train out. And there's still one only places in the United States that still has the presidential emblem within its building outside of the White House. It's there. They took down the flags posted on the outside of Union Station and raised the Palestinian flag. To me, that is an act of terrorism. And those people need to be found and tried. And we have a phenomenal FBI that's willing to go after its own people. But yet, you can go after J6 people, but how about all these people that just did an act of insurgency, tore down our flag, burned it, and raised a Palestinian flag on a federal protected place like Union Station? It's crazy. It's unbelievable. But we have to really look at our politics. Who's been in place for such a long time to allow this to go on and continue to go on? And they need to be gone. Like you said, these people that are on these term limits that are just continuously going on and on and on. What have you given back to the country? Well, how have you served the country? I'm not talking about serving, immigrants coming across. I'm talking about serving this country. And so when we look at that, yes, we need to tear that down. We need to remove these people. We need to reestablish the three branches of government. We need to reestablish the checks and balances. There's a lot that we got to do, and it starts with this election. Right now, we have Trump running for president of the United States, but we also have a lot of House congressional races, and we have Senate races going on. There's tons of races everywhere. Every state has about a dozen races going on. And what we got to do is all of us need to go out there and say, what is better for the country? Is the road we're leading right now, the past 4 years and 4 years that's going to come up, better for the country, is going to get worse? It's like looking at the direction where we're going. We know what the direction we're going. Is it going to get better? No, it's going to get worse. Or we could do a 180 and turn around and go right back. Go back to our foundations. The Democratic Party wants to say to us, they want to go backwards. We're looking forward. Well, yes, we need to go backwards. We need to go back down to our roots. It's like a team, an NFL team, that all of a sudden, they built their whole strategy on, say, running the ball. And then, that's always been their strength, That's what they're known for. And all of a sudden, they start tinkering around with more pass plays and everything. But they don't have the right tools in there, or it's just not working. And sooner or later, you keep losing. You're going to say, hey, let's stop this experiment. Let's go back to our roots and focus on our roots again and start winning again.
Yeah.
That is exactly what Trump wants to do. He wants to focus back on our roots, go back to the foundation, start winning again. But he can't do it unless we all come out and vote. And that calls for a down ballot across the board. And like I get a lot of Republicans say, well, I don't like this Republican. He really doesn't fall in line with what I like. Well, here's the deal. We have to give President Trump the ability to make the change. And he's willing. I mean, his 4 years, minus the COVID, I throw that out. You got to throw that out. This is not. But other than that, his years on there, we saw record low gas prices. We saw record low energy prices, as much as possible, considering there's all these EPA stuff going on. We saw wars going on. Terrorism was virtually almost at a standstill. We saw increase negotiations for a peace deal and almost completely got peace in the Middle East over there with Israel and everyone in the surrounding area. And then you see the last 3.5 years, just a reversal of everything. And so, yeah, we need to go out there. We need to vote. We need to give them all the ammunition as far as congressional seats to be able to push this. Because even if he makes president of the United States, right, I solely believe he's going to become president of the United States. The Democratic Party is going to do everything they can to hold him back from taking office, which is going to try to impeach him based off these trumped up charges, that they're using right now against him. They're going to do everything they can, and we got to give him the ammunition, and we got to give him support to do what he needs to do.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Tony. It doesn't take a blind man to see that we are a soup sandwich right now.
No, we are. We are.
One thing I wanted to ask you, Tony.
Yeah.
As a father, from father to father, what can we do to raise our kids? There's something that you said that really stuck with me. Growing up, we were taught respect. Didn't matter who was in the presidency. We were taught we couldn't even say anything bad about the American flag or the president at the time. Now that's gone. And you said something there about having that respect about, when you were in the Secret Service, you guys had to respect because no matter who you're going to protect, right? That is gone. So what is a word of advice that you can give fathers for children to be able to have the same level of respect that we were taught as far as that goes with America and the presidency and everything, no matter what?
Well, there's many ways I could put this and different scenarios I could do. But I can tell you one thing, okay? As a father, what you got to instill into your kids. And we're talking, fathers of, Black Americans. We're talking fathers of Hispanics. We're talking fathers of Caucasians and everything. Is to get away from this victim mentality. Our schools are infiltrating our kids into DEI, which if you turn it around, it comes out to die. They're going to end up dying, weak and alone. We have taken our kids and made them into a society of victims. Zero accountability for their actions of what they do. Okay? Having them have this free choice with no consequences because parents are too scared to discipline your kids. Feeding into this DEI thing where because of your race, you're disadvantaged automatically. That is a load of, I hate to say, BS.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe that through adversity builds strength, and better leaders are made because they came from more adversity. I truly believe in that. We need to embrace adversity. We need to embrace our hardships, and we need to build a faith through our family, through our structure, through everything. And we could get through anything as long as we work hard and we're good people and we respect other people. It starts with the family, starts with the fathers. The fathers need to go in there and you need to hold your kids accountable. And maybe sometimes it's easier to give in, you know, but you got to do it. Second to that, I like to add this other portion in. You got to get your kids off of social media. Think about all the mental health issues we're running into now that we're seeing, and look at the time frame when social media exploded. Really, social media really started exploding to a point where it's at now is during the COVID time, especially with young kids. Okay. Look at this time period between that 4 years of where we're 2020, 2019, 2020, all the way to now. You got increased depression, especially in females. If you look at it, I think last time I looked, it was like 27%, suicidal rate for females between 14 to 24, something in that nature. You got this confusion with this transgender, stemming a lot from social media, where people are posting things that are just crazy. I mean, I think I saw a posting where a person was like, he's a dragon, and he changed his body into a dragon. So you're taking these people with mental health issues and promoting them in social media, and your kids are watching this stuff. So your kids are getting confused with these things. They're too young. They should not be. I think social media needs to be limited to where these kids can actually comprehend, what's going on. You need to, I believe there should be a restriction on social media for young kids. They should not be on social media. It should not be allowed. That takes parents actually being a parent and saying, hey, you're not going to be on social media. You're not going to watch that stuff because you are too young to comprehend that, that's right from wrong. You can't comprehend it. Okay. So build strong family values, get rid of this DEI, this victim mentality within our kids, regardless of your race, regardless of anything, get rid of that. And get rid of, you're not allowed them to be on social media. End the social media experiment so you can raise your kid, not some person that is just looking for attention raising your kids.
Man, that's some great advice, Tony. Right on, brother. We've reached our hour. Brother, thank you so much for coming on here and just sharing all this information, clearing up some of the misconceptions about, what CIA does, what Secret Service does and stuff like that, man. I know it's going to be a tremendous help. Thank you once again. How can someone get a hold of you? I know you're big on your platform and stuff like that and social media. How can they reach out to you, brother?
So you could go on, you can find me on X at Tony_Sabio.com or _Tony Sabio. You can reach me on there. I do have a foundation called America United Foundation. It's American United Foundation, www.americanunitedfoundation.com. And you can reach me on there and see the kind of stuff we're doing. We're also having a book launch coming out in November. And it's going to be a combination of everything that led me to be able to accomplish a mission in Ukraine. It's going to be a very good book. We're working on it. It's going to be coming out in early to mid-November. Okay. We're going to have the book launch on there. This book is geared towards exactly what we've been talking about. Having faith in yourself, having faith in something bigger than yourself, having love towards others and believing in yourself. It's not made to be a self-help book. It's made to be a reflection of my life and what I went through, and to be able to take my journey and look at your journey and find the adversities that you went through yourself and how you overcame those things and keep building that faith in yourself. And where did your strength come from in finding these things? It's been a book that we've been working on for quite a while. It's going to be something that it's been a very big passion for me to try to help out other people. So I'll let you know when that comes out, and hopefully we get schedule a time we can, after it launched, so we could talk about the book.
Yeah, heck yeah. I've been telling everybody, I was like, dude, you guys all think all this stuff about these guys and stuff on social media. You have no idea. My buddy Tony needs to write a book. This guy's like Tom Clancy. He's got this stellar career. And I mean, this guy needs to write a book. And now finally you're writing a book. That's awesome, bro.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. I want to be a part of that. So
I'm definitely excited about it. I have a lot of people are excited about it too.
Heck yeah. Well, once again, thank you, Tony. This is Dave from the Show Up Dad. Thanking you guys and encouraging you fathers to keep showing up for your families.